Well, that last list got a surprising amount of positive reception, so I guess I'll make another. What's up everyone, and welcome to another Dreamiverse list. I wasn't going to make any more lists like this with the limitations of the PS4 SHAREfactory, but due to circumstances I have not yet had the time to set up and try out my new editing software or my new microphone. So I'm back to this format, at least for the moment. Today's topic? RPGs. Outside the Dreamiverse, the RPG is easily my favorite genre of video games, and apparently I'm not the only one who feels this way, as even back in LBP2, there were people making RPGs. And just like LBP, since there is so much content on the Dreamiverse, it can be difficult to sort through it all. So today, I've made a list of my 10 favorites that I have seen thus far in the Dreamiverse in no particular order. The only rule is that it has to contain the elements of an RPG. Simply being tagged as such is not enough. With all that said, let's get surfing. First up, we have Dark Souls. I mean, Rome Action RPG. Though that comparison is actually pretty accurate. Rome is a third-person action RPG where you have a sword, a shield, and a stamina meter that you need to be very careful of. While not as brutal as Dark Souls, it certainly is challenging. You can heal, but only from bonfires or what few potions you are given. And if you run out of potions, and you don't manage your stamina carefully, you're basically screwed. On top of that, there is also an equipment system, but choose carefully, as not every item you pick up is objectively better than what you have. There's not really a story here, it's just you against the Horde, but that's good enough in its own way. Second on today's list is probably the most unique game I've found in the Dreamiverse. Exodus Machina. In this game, you play as a police officer in a sci-fi world where you are given a mystery to solve. The meat of the gameplay is in the puzzles you must solve and the NPCs you must interact with in order to solve the mystery. This game nails the atmosphere perfectly. Each scene feels like a scene from Blade Runner or something. In each of these locations, you need to consider all of the options at your disposal, from items you have obtained to places you have not yet explored. It almost feels like this game is made by BioWare, you know, without the EA corruption. I've barely scratched the surface of this massive city, and I can't wait to see where it leads. Next up is the very underrated Pixsouls Adventure. Described as a fusion of Paper Mario and Dark Souls, Pixsouls is a turn-based RPG where you enter battles, gain experience, and level up. The most notable thing about that last one is that you actually get to choose which stats you increase at each level. That's something that no other game on this list has. It starts out just asking you to grind a bunch, but later on you get more options as the game progresses, and even a second party member, or partner, for the Paper Mario fans. As for the story, there is some evil amuck in the world, and it has something to do with the essence of people's souls, called Pix. Also, it can make people go insane. All we have at the moment is the beginning, but if what we have gotten thus far is any indication, it's gonna get dark. For the fourth entry on our list, Frozen Flame! I mean, Heroes of Aldrenor. Though that's doing it a bit of a disservice, as unlike Falkroth's masterpiece from LBP2, there is a massive difference in characterization. Each of our main trio has a backstory and motivation. Sure, it's just your basic fighter rogue mage trio, and this is largely the case in gameplay as well. Each one has a set of abilities, including a basic attack, as well as a few special abilities that consume energy. As for the story, well, all we really know at this point is that the crown was stolen and our heroes have been hired to get it back. And on the way, they discover something much more sinister hiding in the shadows. While this creation is still ongoing, what we have seen thus far is very promising. Well, provided it actually does get finished. The gameplay is intuitive and precise, never giving the impression of sloppiness or inaccuracy, and each attack you throw at the bandits just feels right. If you long for the days of old with games like Diablo or Dungeon Siege, I highly recommend following this creation. Number 5 on the list, you may have seen Project Genesis or some other Dreams tubers play at some point. Silver Slumber! An action RPG where you venture throughout a ravaged landscape and rather than leveling up traditionally, you unlock a new ability or weapon at certain points. This game is one of the few on the list that is actually finished. Though, as a compromise, it is pretty short. All the abilities you get are fun, but the mechanics do have a tendency to just stop working at certain points. Several times in the last segment, the bow and arrow just stopped working for no apparent reason. These are issues, but that does not mean the game as a whole is not worth playing. The combat is still refined, the lock-on does work if you know how to use it, and each new ability you get has different uses in combat and in puzzle solving. No spoilers, but when you get to the final act, it just gets more and more epic. Our next entry, like Pixsouls, is surprisingly underrated. Dreams Horizon, an action RPG told in first person about a boy who dreams his way into a fantasy world where he is attacked by skeletons, but then a sword comes out of the sky so he can fight them off. Convenience, I guess. Then he wakes up as if it was all a dream. But now the skeletons are real. And so is his sword. I'm not gonna lie here, I am fascinated by the setup. From the fight in the desert to the sword coming back at the end of the demo, I was totally immersed. While it's not always clear which way you have to go, you never end up wandering around aimlessly for several hours. The whole experience was really surreal, but there is one problem. The combat appears to be just mashing the attack button until all the enemies are dead. Now at least. I'm expecting the combat in the full game to be more involved, with different abilities used to deal more damage and heal, and with more enemies that can attack from a distance and vary their attack patterns. If the game can deliver on the combat, then it really will be a fantastic and unique RPG experience. Number 7 on this list, you have probably heard of. Mimeo Prophecy, the winner of the 2019 Impy for Best Narrative. Though we haven't gotten that much of a story outside of the setup, it's still quite good. You play as Cody and his friends as they explore an old laboratory that might have more to it than meets the eye. Yet despite the Earthbound vibes I keep getting from it, it seems the combat is going to be active time without the rest of the party taking part. At least, that's what the creator has said. As for the world and quests, Mimeo Prophecy has the best on the list, aside from one that I'll get to later. There is a lot to do for what appears to be such a small portion of the whole game. Everything in the world that we see is fleshed out. There is detail in every location, and that even extends to the characters. Almost every party member is found at a unique location that helps inform us on who they are. The entire game is also set up very well, like an actual RPG with loads of side quests and items to find and NPCs to interact with. Maybe there should be an Impy for world building. If you're looking for a more refined turn-based game, then look no further than Shadow's Dance at Olivetop Reach. Hands down the best turn-based combat system on the list. Encounters are not preset or determined by running into them on a world map, they come out periodically. There is again not much of a story here, but the gameplay is polished to perfection. It's turn-based as I said, but instead of being able to just target an enemy with an attack, the enemies show up in positions on a grid, and you are at a disadvantage if you try to attack an enemy that's positioned behind another on the grid. The enemies also have elemental weaknesses and resistances, as well as varied attack patterns. Sometimes you might be able to finish off a random encounter without breaking a sweat, and other times you may lose more than half of your life thanks to a charged up attack. The only real issues here are the occasional point where it is not apparent which direction you are supposed to go next, a few gaps where you can fall down and die, and a general lack of healing items and checkpoints. If these issues were fixed and maybe there were spells you unlocked by leveling up, then it would be just about perfect. Next up is Skyrim. Fusroda! I mean, Slayer Scrolls 2. Okay, that was the last joke in the video, I promise. But it's not really a joke. That's pretty much the game in a nutshell. It's totally Skyrim. From the UI to the combat to the NPCs to the going on quests, it was made to be a Skyrim clone. Though it is a very good Skyrim clone that adds its own take on the premise. Instead of a Dragonborn who can go anywhere, you take up the role of a Slayer. Someone who takes up tasks called scrolls for the people of the world. Just like Mimeo Prophecy, there are tons of side quests, and some of them are even multi-part. The actual combat requires quick thinking and reaction time in order to not die. So yeah, Slayer Scrolls 2 is a Skyrim clone, but it's a good one, and I'd recommend it while you're waiting for Elder Scrolls 6. I guess you could say, it just works! The last game on today's list is one of my favorite games in the Dreamiverse, and just like Pixsouls and Dreams Horizon, it's one that I find to be very underrated. The Quest of Kadath, a turn-based RPG about two kingdoms at war with a dark force in the background that is slowly plotting the end of not just this world, but all of existence. As Eternal Sonata is to classic music, the Quest of Kadath is to H.P. Lovecraft. Literally every name of every significant character or location is a reference to something or someone from the Lovecraftian mythos. The combat starts out as really basic, but as you unlock more abilities and characters, it becomes much more strategic. You have abilities that can only be used once every other turn, and abilities that can be used once per fight. This becomes especially relevant when it comes to boss battles, as you have to decide when to use each of your precious super moves. As for the story, it also starts out incredibly basic, but becomes much more interesting over time. As more characters are added and you think you know everything, but then something really bad happens and it makes you question if you actually know what kind of game you are playing. While the animation is quite janky, especially after the full game release, and some areas are underdeveloped, that does not detract from the overall experience. But the best part of this whole massive project is, it's actually finished. There is 8 hours of gameplay in total, and it's actually engaging the whole way. But that raises an interesting point about the rest of this list. Well, minus Silver Slumber and Slayer Scrolls 2. I know some of you are sick of me bringing up Little Big Planet, but for this comparison it's very important. Most of the big projects that were started on those games never got any additional entries, and if they did, they still didn't get anywhere close to being finished. And if you started an RPG on Little Big Planet, it was basically doomed to never be finished. The only multi-level long project I know of that got finished was the Red Knight. And playing all the creations for this list made me realize that it almost looks like the same thing is happening again. Creator starts a big project with a massive story to tell and awesome gameplay, but is never able to finish it because of either a loss of motivation or real life taking up too much time. It is as I said in my What Dreams Means to Me video. 90% of the big projects I saw never got past the first stage. Yet, I still have some level of hope for these creations. Dreams makes creating things a lot easier than Little Big Planet did. And there are a lot of things that have happened in the community that I would have said were impossible in Little Big Planet. Like having complete control of character design, or having a system to find new good quality creations consistently, or a search engine that finds specific types of creations, or an RPG actually getting finished instead of getting put on indefinite hiatus upon the release of Part 1. That's why I have such high hopes for the community. So many things have happened that just blow my mind, and I can't wait to see what comes next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the Dreamiverse.